Hola and konnichiwa, cats and kitties. I am the blues man, sXeblues, and yes, that was a little bit of a different opening. I'm sure it matches my viewer demographic perfectly. But today we're going to be looking at the life and career of Bradley James Nowell, the former lead singer and guitarist and founding member of the band Sublime. Where do we start? Well, we're going to start at the beginning, of course, but being that this is merely an overview, I'm going to actually skip the lesson on what brings one into the world, and we're going to jump ahead to when he was approximately 11 years old, and he witnessed and heard reggae for the first time on a trip to Jamaica with his father. And, of course, coming from a background where music was influential, his father and grandfather were musicians, his mother played the flute, and during family get-togethers they would pass a guitar around and sing songs with relish. And, of course, this was something that Brad wanted to learn to do himself. Growing up hearing styles of music like ska and rock, hip-hop, all of these elements would eventually, sort of formulate together to set the tone for what he would eventually do with his own band. And the birth of that band actually came by the mid-teens when he was jamming out of the garage with neighbor and friend Eric Wilson, who would soon introduce his friend Bud Gow, and the three of them would actually become the crux formation of Sublime. They began playing local parties and soon would go, touring full time. But life on the road, as it were, became very tiring for Brad, and he began to doubt his own natural talents, which were, being able to scat and come up with things off the top of his head, brilliant guitarist and things like that. And with the feeling that his creativity was beginning to wane, he actually got involved in drugs and alcohol pretty heavily. And, people have said he suffered as well as his band suffered for it. In fact, a lot of this, comes through in his songs, and that's one big detractor, that it's not of all ages. Because, things like sex and drugs and violence, destruction, and even thievery, things that were all around him, in Southern California at the time, these all played into the songs, and very explicitly so. But in spite of this, they actually became very popular during their live shows, and actually managed to sell some early demos out of the trunk of their car, the first being "Jaw Won't Pay the Bills." Subsequently, a version of this would become their first official release under the retitled heading 40 Ounces to Freedom, with their song "Date Rape" finding its way onto radio stations, and with the video they shot for it finding its way onto MTV, along with this popularity on the radios. This allowed them to go forward with a second album, "Robin the Hood," and perhaps the weakest of the three, because as Brad oversaw it during these tumultuous times, there was, emphasis on sound bites and things that really took away from a lot of the different tracks. But this, popularity would catch the nose of MCA, and eventually they would create their mainstream album, self-titled Sublime. But in the wake of the completion of this, as well as having settled down and married longtime friend Troy and fathering a child with her, he decided he wanted to celebrate one last time. He had been clean for a little while, and he wanted to get high again, and this, as fate would have it, was the final time, as he was found dead the next morning by his friend and bandmate Bud Gow. And though his life ended on that fateful night in 1996, soon thereafter his self-titled album Sublime would climb the charts, with such singles as "What I Got," "Santeria," and "Doin' Time" becoming big hits with radios and on MTV. And subsequently, the surviving members of the band have continued to tour under various incarnations over the years, and so perhaps Bradley would take some comfort in knowing that his legacy does live on, if for nothing else that the choices he chose to make in life have inspired this particular reviewer to make different ones. But that's going to conclude our look at the life and career of Bradley James Nowell. I hope you've enjoyed what I've had to say here today, and I hope you're all doing well. So I'll catch you later. Peace.